Imagine you are standing on the surface of Mars. The sun rises smaller, paler, weaker than on Earth. The sky is not blue. It is a dusty butterscotch, sometimes the color of dried blood. The ground beneath you is rust-red regolith, fine as flour. It looks almost like a desert. It is not. Within 90 seconds, your unprotected lungs would rupture. The atmospheric pressure is less than 1% of Earth's. The temperature averages negative 63 degrees Celsius. The radiation hitting your skin is roughly 40 times what an astronaut absorbs in low Earth orbit. There is no magnetic field. There is no breathable air. There is no help. But the surface is not what should frighten you. What should frighten you is what is hiding beneath it. In this video, we are going to expose 3 things they do not tell you about Mars. The atmospheric collapse that turned a habitable world into a graveyard. The hidden lakes that should not exist. And the methane signal that may be the first whisper of life beyond Earth. Let us start with what would kill you the moment you stepped outside. For most of human history, when we looked at Mars, we saw a brother. A red point of light in the night sky, named after a god, imagined as a near twin of Earth. We were wrong. Mars's atmospheric pressure at the surface is roughly 6 millibars, so thin that liquid water cannot exist in open conditions. If you removed your helmet, the saliva on your tongue would boil. Your lungs would rupture from the gas inside trying to escape outward into the near vacuum. In 2008, NASA's Phoenix lander discovered perch lorates in the Martian soil at concentrations of roughly 0.5% by mass, confirmed by a 2009 paper in Science. On Earth, perch lorates are used in rocket propellant. Every footprint, every dust storm, every breath of stirred-up Martian dirt is a chemical assault on the human body. This is not a planet trying to be habitable and failing. This is a planet that was sterilized. But Mars was not always a dead world, and this is where the real horror begins. 4 billion years ago, Mars had oceans. It had rivers. It had a thick atmosphere. And it had a magnetic field, generated by a churning iron core that did exactly what Earth's magnetic field does for us now. It deflected the solar wind. It protected the air. Then it stopped. The core cooled. The dynamo shut down. The magnetic field collapsed. Mars was left exposed to the sun. NASA's MAVEN spacecraft, which arrived at Mars in 2014, was designed for a single purpose: to measure how much of Mars's atmosphere is currently being stripped away by solar wind. The answer was approximately 100 grams per second. Multiply that across billions of years, and you get the total destruction of a planet's air. Bruce Jakosky, MAVEN's principal investigator at the University of Colorado Boulder, published the team's findings in Science in 2017. A planet that once had liquid oceans, possibly rain, possibly life, was peeled apart by its own star. Not in a single catastrophic event. Slowly, methodically. Earth is also slowly losing its atmosphere to space. We are protected because our magnetic field is still active, but cores cool. Dynamos stop. Mars is not just a dead world. Mars is a preview. With the surface poisoned, with the air gone, with the radiation lethal, anything that survived had only one place left to hide. In July 2018, a paper in Science quietly rewrote our understanding of Mars. The lead author was Roberto Orsi, a planetary scientist at Italy's National Institute for Astrophysics. The data came from the Mars-CIS radar aboard the European Space Agency's Mars Express orbiter. What Orsi and his team found, beneath roughly 1.5 kilometers of ice at the Martian South Pole, was a radar signature that on Earth means only one thing: liquid water. A subsurface lake estimated to be about 20 kilometers across, sitting at a temperature of roughly negative 68 degrees Celsius. The only way water can exist as a liquid at that temperature is if it is heavily saline. Then in 2020, a follow-up paper led by Sebastian Laureau at Roma Tre University was published in Nature Astronomy. There was not just one hidden lake. There were multiple subsurface bodies of water sitting in the dark beneath kilometers of ice. Beneath the most radiation-blasted surface in the inner solar system, There are pockets of liquid water that may have been stable for millions, possibly billions of years. They are dark. They are cold. They are isolated from the surface. They are exactly the kind of environment where, on Earth, life persists. Lake Vostok, buried under nearly 4 kilometers of Antarctic ice, is home to extremophile microbes isolated for millions of years. Not everyone agrees with the interpretation. In 2021, a team led by Carver Beerson at Arizona State University proposed in geophysical research letters that the bright Marseus reflections might come from frozen clay sediments rather than liquid water. This is the responsible scientific debate, but Orosei's group has continued to defend the original interpretation, and the most recent analyses still favor the liquid water hypothesis. So we have liquid water under the ice, in the only environment on Mars that could have continuously protected anything alive from the sterilization above. And then, in 2019, something else happened. On June 19, 2019, the Curiosity rover transmitted an atmospheric reading, 21 parts per billion of methane. The background level is roughly 0.4 parts per billion. By the next sol, the methane had dropped back to baseline. Christopher Webster, a senior research scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, has documented a seasonal methane cycle on Mars in the journal Science and in follow-up papers. Methane on Mars should not exist for very long. Solar ultraviolet radiation breaks it apart in roughly 300 years. Whatever is producing this methane is producing it now. There are two possibilities. Either Mars has an active geochemical process we do not fully understand, like water reacting with hot rock deep in the crust, or the methane is biological. On Earth, more than 90% of atmospheric methane comes from living organisms. The data gets stranger. In 2019, the European Space Agency Trace Gas Orbiter published findings in the journal Nature, with lead author Oleg Koroblev showing almost no methane in the upper atmosphere. The detection limit was less than 0.05 parts per billion. That means the methane Curiosity sees at the surface is being released and destroyed before it rises, and it implies an active source, the opposite of what a dead planet should have. Then in 2022, a science paper from the Perseverance team reported complex organic carbon compounds in Jezero crater mudstone. That is not proof of life. These are the molecular building blocks that would have to exist for life to be possible. Liquid water under the ice, a reactive methane cycle, organic compounds in ancient lake beds. None of this is proof of life. All of it is what proof of life would look like before we found it. If anything is alive on Mars today, it is not on the surface. The surface is sterile. Anything that survived the death of Mars' atmosphere 4 billion years ago could only have done so by going underground, down into the cracks, down into the brines, down into the dark. Whatever is in those Martian lakes, if anything is, has been waiting longer than complex life has existed on Earth. The lakes are kilometers down. We have no spacecraft capable of reaching them. We have no plan to drill. The thing that may be alive on Mars right now is in the one place we cannot currently look. So what does this mean? Mars is not a frontier. It is a graveyard. A planet that had everything it needed to become Earth's twin and then lost it. But beneath the dead surface, in lakes that should not exist, there may still be something holding on. Something that survived the worst extinction event the inner solar system has ever produced. There are only two possibilities. Either life is rare, almost miraculous, and Mars is empty, or life is common, and the Martian deep biosphere is one example of millions across the galaxy. Both possibilities should change how you feel about your own existence on a small wet rock that still has a magnetic field. When you look up at the night sky and see Mars as a steady red point of light, you are looking at the future our planet may one day share. You are looking at a world that may already have answered the only question that matters, and is just waiting for us to be capable enough to hear it. Mars is not the scariest planet because it kills you. Mars is the scariest planet because it might not be empty. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. I'll see you next time.